everyone. Welcome to Trio Talks. My name is Erin Daniels, and I am a Trio coach coordinator. And I have a guest today, Rashid Kamen, who is also a member of the Trio staff. We are going to start a little bit off today with what is Trio. Then we're going to introduce ourselves a little bit more formally. We're going to then move on to our talk. We're going to talk about first gen today. And then at the end, if there's any lingering questions or questions at all, we'll go ahead and answer those additional questions. So to start off, just before anything happens, and welcome Kari or Carrie.
Carrie.
Um, what is Trio? We're just starting off. So I have here on our Madison College webpage the Trio site. So basically, if you go to current students and then you search Trio, it'll bring you to our services. So um, basically, we support students on campus in two ways. One way is financially. We offer scholarships, we offer tickets to events, we offer fun events that have free food. We offer a lot of different things that we were granted money to give to our students. The second way is non financial. That is reflected in a lot of different ways. We offer advising. So advisors are here to help you figure out what classes to take and to help you move along on your journey to graduating when and how you want to graduate. They also help with things like financial aid and the big things that might shake you up a little bit when you're here in your college journey. We offer academic coaching. Coaches help with your day to day. Once the advisor gives you the class for the semester, the coaches are here to help you execute all of the resources available to you in order to get the best grades possible. Lastly, we do have a director position as well, and our director just oversees all the trio and holistically just tries to support you in bigger ways. So if there are any things programming wise that you would like to see, if there's any opportunities that you heard about that you feel like would be good for trio, the director will be able to help with that. So these trio talks that we're going to have are going to take a deep dive into the three areas of students that we focus on the most in trio. The first student population that we focus on is first generation. A lot of people may or may not know what that means. And today you're going to find out exactly what that means because some people might think they are, or they may didn't even know they were, and they'll find out today. The second population that we support is students with disabilities, and disabilities look different nowadays. Back in the day, I feel like you used to think you could see it, but there are so many disabilities that we can have that aren't visual that we assist students with. And the last population is low income. I always joke and say we all broke. And that's a population of students that we support. It's students who are federally under a certain income level, but also just in general have limitations when it comes to income. So, in the meantime, we're going to hop into our guest for today. So, again, my name is Erin Daniels, and I am a trio coach, and I'd like our guests to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rashi Kamen. I am a TRIO academic advisor, as well as the co-advisor to the I'm First Gen club student club here on campus.
Thank you, Rashi, for agreeing to talk with us today. I'm so excited about this.
Oh yeah, and then actually I was gonna say, oh wow, I have never been like the guest speaker to anything, so
Oh,
you know,
yay!
kind of interesting to be on the other side. So
You are the perfect choice for our guest speaker because of working with Trio, but also heading up our student club for first gens that a lot of students don't even know we have. So I'm excited about diving into that. Now, I know that there are some students on the line here, so I did prepare a question to start us all off. So we have answers like first generation student, getting that money, brand new,
brand new.
don't know what I'm doing. First in family to attend, and first generation students. I think that these are all great and these are all true. And part of why we're having these talks today is so that we can actually find out not only what first gen is in general, but also what Madison College considers first gen so that you can really know what it means here. Thanks for participating, and we're going to hop in. So, we're going to start off the talks by just getting to know Rashi a little bit more. Okay, so my first question for you is, do you identify as a first generation college student?
I absolutely do.
Okay. And then the follow-up question there is, when did you realize that you were a first gen student? And tell us a little bit more about your first gen story.
Okay. So this was interesting when you told me that that was going to be a question, like when did I first realize it? I actually didn't realize I was a first gen student officially until I was in grad school. So around 2009, 2010. And that was because the program that I was studying, I was focusing on counseling with a higher education emphasis. And so with that, just the research that we were doing and all the things that we were talking about as it related to um, education planning and career planning and things like that. The first gen, it seems like it was just now becoming a well talked about um, experience for students. But what's interesting is that although I didn't officially know that the first gen student was a thing. I, of course, was one. And when I first started college was in the early 90s. And so nobody in the 90s was talking about first gen students, at least not at my university. Um, at that time, I knew of like my cousins. I have cousins that are older than me by a couple of years. That when I knew that they went to college, didn't know how they got there, how that was possible, because they too were all first gen. And so it's funny, like we never even talked about that whole getting the road to college, until I actually started working as the advisor with the club. Just having those conversations, it's like, I don't remember how I got to college other than the fact that I was in a college prep program in high school, but everything else about the experience was very fuzzy. I don't remember visiting colleges. I don't remember having um, conversations within the family about college and what that would look like, what things you should, prepare for. Um, so yeah, it's when I think back on, well, when I look at the remarkable people that my cousins are, like all of um, our peer group, basically, most of our peer group were first gen students. Because if you are, in case you're not familiar, college access for minorities, especially Blacks, was not very common, in the 80s and the 90s. And so that would be around the time that my my family members were starting, my generation of family members were starting to see that as a possibility. But what's interesting that one common thread that I found in having conversations more recently with my family members about the road or the path to college was that it was other people who helped them get there. For instance, my one cousin, Latanya, she was very active in her high school. So she had a friend whose mother wasn't a college graduate herself or had never attended, but she, because of her interactions in the community, like the church and things like that their church did a lot of things that kind of exposed the young people within their congregation to church things and like resource not church things, college related things, resources in the community that supported students learning about college and financial things. And she said that that friend's mother would invite her to go along with them to get that information firsthand. And so, again, talking to other relatives, they had similar experiences where it was someone that they knew from school or within the community, like mentors that actually exposed them initially to, um, how to get to it. Like we were all in high school and we're all in like college prep type programs. But even within that, as I started to reflect back, it just didn't seem like there was this real intense priority on helping us within the community to know that that was a real possibility. It was like it was just going through the motions. Oh yeah, this is college prep program, blah 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 blah. But there was no, I don't, like I said, no college visits, none of that stuff. Um, so I'm just so amazed that all of us, although we all had, our different journeys within that space, it looked very different for all of us. Everyone's very successful and they made it through. And so um, when I couple that with the fact, like I said, that when I was doing my graduate studies, um, seeing, the definitions for the first time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was a first gen college student and I had all of the classic signs of being a first gen college student. And by that, I mean, when I got there, first of all, I was confused because, like I said, didn't even know how I got there. I don't have any recollection of applying for college and all that stuff, applying for financial aid. Um, Although I must have had to because I had the college debt to to show for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just part of that experience as first gen. Like you're presented with all this information and doing things, and you don't really know what it means. You don't know what you're doing it for, and so I imagine the financial aid stuff was probably one of those biggest pieces that was like, okay, I'm just doing it because somebody told me to do it, but I don't know what this is, right? But beyond that, some of my earlier experiences were, just not knowing how to be a student, just, following what everyone else was doing, but not really knowing the what's and the whys and, the how to's. And, uh, and then ultimately not really feeling like I belonged within that setting. And so that, led to me the whole imposter thing. Like I didn't even have, that language, back then, but I certainly felt it like that, I was a fraud because, I didn't feel like I was as smart as the other kids in class, didn't really have a direction. I thought that I wanted to be in education. So that was my major initially, but I don't recall having adequate advising on that and what that road would look like. When I think about what we do in TRIO, how we sit students down and we do that course planning, that whole roadmap to see like this is what your journey is going to look like for your entire time here. Um, so, and so then the other thing is like what was pretty common when I first started college in the 90s is that a lot of the minority students didn't, persist. So, like, I stopped out, and there were reasons that I stopped out as well. But my story kind of mimics what a lot of students even today experience, and that's where you're taking a class here, taking a class there, and at some point you piece it all together, and voila, you eventually end up with a degree. And so, and for me, that when I think about that, it didn't have to be that complicated if I had access to the right people at at a different time in my life when my circumstances had changed. I was a young mother and, had to move. And so like, how do you navigate transferring? Like as a first gen student, I had no idea that I could just pick up and go to another school. And once I started to realize that that was, a possibility, that was then when I, would start taking a class here at the community college in my new city. And so, like I said, being a young mother, wife, and all that, having to take a class, whenever we could afford it and whenever time would allow. Um, that's kind of what I did. Um, and so, anyway, so going back to when I first realized I was a first year student, like I said, it was not until I started grad school, but shortly after that, when I started my internship, my first internship with my grad program was working for a TRIO program, which I ultimately led to me getting hired, my first advising job, and it was for TRIO, the Educational Opportunity Center program at UW Milwaukee, and that program is a college access program for students who were 19 and a half or older, and were going to school for the first time. So that's when I actually, beyond my own experiences, saw how the experience was, how badly it was needed for students who identified as first gen, to have the right kind of support, to have the right kind of people that they could trust to give them the information. Because that's one of the big things too, is that a lot of times when you are first gen, you don't feel comfortable opening up to anyone. You feel like someone's going to judge me because I'm 30 years old, and I just finished high school, got a GED, and now I'm trying to go to college, but I don't really know how to do that, and I don't want anyone else to know that I don't know how to do that. So that was my early experiences with helping students access higher ed for the first time, and seeing a lot of the barriers that they were faced with, really kind of like ignited in me, even like, oh my God, this is such important work. Like I was lucky I got through it with the minimal,
Mm-hmm.
resources and things like that. But, you know, I also know that there were some other things that contributed to me being able to do that successfully,
Right.
eventually. But in most cases, for a lot of people, they don't have other,
Yeah.
things going on, like, you know, economic stability and things like that, that
Right.
could help um, provide that kind of ability to access and ability to persist in it and things like that. So I just really started to think that this is such an important organization, TRIO, because that was my first time even becoming familiar with the umbrella of programs that TRIO offers, because it's all about helping, minorities, low income, first gen, students
Mm-hmm.
with disabilities.
Right.
Yeah, so that was kind of, I know that was a long winded answer,
I
but
mean, your story should be, right? Because um it's a part of your life, and like a couple bullets just to highlight some things that you said, and thanks for sharing your story, because the point is we go through school, go through life for a set amount of time, not knowing we're first gen until someone tells us we're first gen. I feel like you went all the way. You went through your whole undergrad, not even knowing. And then you went and applied to grad school. And then, well, even before that, you were at a college, a community college, and you realized you could have transferred to another one. And then you finished your undergrad. And then the theme here, for everybody, thank you everyone for joining us. We started off by saying, what is first gen? And one of the biggest things that highlight is students who don't know their first gen. And then you said you realized that you're first gen when you were doing research and started working for a TRIO program. And then that's when the definitions start coming out and you realize that you identify and relate to the students that you were helping. I feel like as TRIO staff, that's something that we realized too. Just to piggyback off of yours, I'm also first gen. And I found out my undergraduate year, I'm from Los Angeles originally, and then I was I came to UW-Madison and I joined the TRIO program. It's almost like they automatically signed me up because I didn't know to sign up. And that's when I realized that I was first gen. I think upon graduating, they just kept telling me I'm these words. The point of these TRIO talks is to take all these acronyms or phrases that we keep hearing all the time and fleshing them out to make them make sense. And I think that you did a great job with your story. Just there's a lot of students who can relate. Raise your hand virtually or um, or type in the chat if you can relate to being a parent while you're in school. Who can relate to just being clueless, like not knowing, not having anyone to ask questions to about college? Who can relate to um, being the first in their family, like that generation, like not having a parent or guardian who went to college and you're doing this for the first time? Who can relate to feeling not good enough? And because you don't feel good enough, or feeling like you don't belong, or feeling like this isn't where you should be, you don't trust to ask the questions. Who can relate to having a lot of questions and just not knowing where to go, not knowing who to ask, not knowing even what the question is? You just know you have questions. All of those things in your story you brought up. And I'm so happy that not only you had that experience, you finally realized you were, and you're in a position now to help other people who don't know. So let me dive a little bit into your experience trying to help first gen who don't know their first gen, right? So you're in trio. You're an advisor that can help them with that roadmap to college. You're also in the club. How difficult has it been? Or talk to me about like what are some challenges maybe helping first gen who don't know that your resource exists or don't know their first gen? Oh, wait, actually, before we do that, I see that we had a probably a question about earlier. So go ahead and Megan. Megan's helping us out and it's also a trio staff. Go ahead with the question, Megan.
To be honest with you, I do not see a question.
Oh, I thought I saw uh
A hand
sometimes
raised
I see these
earlier.
little
Yeah.
chats pop up. Okay, never mind. Also,
I,
this
I'm
is just
I'm keeping a lookout for him.
awesome. Thank you. This is a reminder to just mute yourself if you're not talking, if possible, just so that we don't have any feedback. I'm hoping I don't have any feedback here. But so let's dive into that question that I was going into. What are some of your challenges that you have, and how do you overcome them to help actually connect with first gen and help them understand they are first gen?
I think the first thing is the approach is being, student centered. Is like because from day to day, you don't know what student you're going to be presented with. So it's one of the tenets of having that student focused approach is just being ready to listen. And so in that listening, that's when you get to, pick up on things that students say, like, you know, feeling like they don't belong or feeling confused and like, oh, I don't have any support from my parents. And so those kinds of clues, when you hear them, that's a trigger for you to ask some probing questions, follow-up questions, so that you get that information from them about whether or not they are first gen. One of the things that I think that drives the work too is that I relate to them. I can understand a lot of the barriers, and sometimes the barriers are perceived barriers, right? And that was something that when I'm able to look back on from my own experiences, that sometimes, you know, as I said before, I was in a college prep program, so it's not like I wasn't academically ready for college, but I convinced myself that I wasn't ready for college because I just didn't understand how college worked. So that's like a perception that's not really based in a lot of truth. So like trying to help people fight through all of the things that they think are issues or problems and get to the heart of 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 the matter, which is you can do it. You're here. If you weren't able to do it, you wouldn't have made it here. You wouldn't have gotten, even with, students coming in, sometimes they're, underprepared, but that doesn't mean they're not able and capable of getting through a college program, a college class, a college program, earning a degree and all that. So I think that would be the biggest challenge, is helping students fight through those negative voices that
Mm-hmm.
are spreading the lies, basically,
Yes.
about what they are not capable of doing. And for me, as I said, like, it's being able to reflect back on something and see from whence you came and to the point that
Yeah.
you are now is, for me, that's strong, compelling evidence for myself, but I also like to try to bring that into some of my experiences with students when it's appropriate, to be able to help them to see, like, I know that it feels a certain way right now, but don't give up right now, not on your first
Right.
semester, because
Right.
it is possible. You will get through this, just don't give up. Um, and so, and then the other thing too with that, there are, I know that there are some real, barriers. Like when you think about the financial aspects of going to college, and if you've got the child and now you don't have a babysitter, so those are the real
Right.
things. And so sometimes you can't fix that. And so that's a challenge too, because I know from experience, when you stop out because of these other life things, it takes a while to be as even if you have the strongest desires to,
Mm-hmm.
get back at it, the realities don't support that, right? And so, like, I know in a lot of the cases where students have to take a break, and they may say, like, oh, I'm just going to take a break for, this semester because my, babysitting stuff situation has changed. I know from experience how that one semester could be 2 semesters and then a whole year, and next thing you know, it's 5 years, and you haven't
Right.
finished what you had thought you'd had would have finished a long time ago. And so I try my best to try to help students use that as the last resort. So, like, what other resources can we find to prevent that from being um, the go-to response or reaction to that temporary, issue, or what could be a temporary issue? Because a lot of life happens,
Right.
within a space, and so, um, so yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah. So I'm hearing that, you know, people aren't self-identifying, but what they're going through by being an active listener, you can tell, they are, you can identify them as a first gen because of the types of sentiments that they're sharing, and then you reach out to them and try to help them, and then help them understand that they qualify as first gen, and then take it. And then I also hear that because of your own personal experiences, that allows you to be able to help identify the students, even though they may not know that they identify. So we do have a couple questions. I see Megan's hand, and then I do have my follow-up question, just so you to get ready for, is how do you identify first gen students? Like, what are the characteristics that identify? So that's going to be your upcoming one for me. In the meantime, we're going to pause for a second and have Megan ask her question.
Yeah, I
okay.
just wanted to make sure that Carrie's question, she put it in the chat. She says, "What is the I'm First Club?" So I wanted to.
Ah, that is a great question. And go ahead if you would like to take that away.
Yep. So I'm first is the student club that supports students who identify as a first generation college student. And the definition that um, historically has been used at the college, and so when the club was established, is that it's for a first gen student, college student is any student whose parent did not earn a 4-year bachelor's degree. And so we have students that we've actually kind of expanded that our reach with I'm First is because we have opened up our club to students who have parents who were maybe they received education outside of the United States. And so those students we've been offering support and community to because if you've been educated outside, there's a lot of research that backs up the ideas that if your family was educated outside of the United States, that's a whole different thing, and that still kind of puts you in a position of being disadvantaged when it comes to being able to succeed, without the right kinds of supports in our American institutions. So we are a club that we are here to provide students with information, resources, definitions to acronyms, explanations of processes, reminders about important dates and things that you probably have seen or heard but don't really know that applies to you because again, you're first gen. And that takes me back to, I kind of wanted to have a clarifying point when I kept mentioning that, I was in a college prep program in high school. So I was, but that still didn't prevent me from being confused. And what I realized is that when you're first gen, you don't have the family at home that helps you make sense of that, that helps you understand that supports and then follows up on things. And so, like the information that comes your way through a program, it's just a lot of fuzz and noise, right? It's something like, oh, you just think, oh, it doesn't really apply to me because I'm not going to college. Nobody in my family has gone to college. That's just not something you do. So with that said.
Yeah. And to add on to that, yeah, our club is for everyone who is first gen, which we just defined technically at the school, which is not having a parent or guardian who have earned a 4-year degree. But also, as Rashi was saying, we're looser than that. If you're a confused student, because that was like the defying commonality is if you are confused and you don't know who to ask help to, you might be first gen. So this club could be for you too. If you're first in your family, even if other siblings are going with you, but you're first in your family, come to the clubs. Something else that was brought up was, um, well, maybe my parents got a degree, but they're not in my household. There's no one here helping me. And so that's what you were kind of bringing up at the end there, like where we're trying to help students too who may have parents who have earned that, but the point is in their home, they don't have anyone to help them. And that's what the club is here for. And so at our meetings, we talk about all kinds of things. And sometimes we drop everything and just answer the questions that are urgent to the students. Other times we have scheduled workshops and stuff like that. So,
I kind of wanted to, I guess, add on to what you were saying. I was recently talking to someone else who said, like, you know, I I'm actually first gen or identify as first gen because um, even though one of my parents did have a degree, but was never in my life really. But like
right.
when they think about some of this is a barrier is that how does financial aid expect you to,
Uh,
disclose that? So like, if they don't care, that your parent wasn't in the home with you, didn't raise you, but if you know that they have a college degree and you put that on there, they
right.
factor that into, the picture. They don't consider you first gen, right? Um, so I think that it's important that if you find yourself in that situation, that you seek resources, because you very well fit within, and for sure, our definition of someone who is likely confused and anxious about all the stuff that you don't know or should know, or things that you could potentially be missing out on. Um, so yeah, that was just an added thing. And then in terms of the First Gen Club, I didn't want to forget to say that we also try to help students access mentors, because that's one of, I think, the biggest parts of helping to get through being a college student, and then also like with the career planning and being able to see someone who was themselves a first gen, who has gone through college successfully, working in their fields, or maybe not even the field that they went to school for, but working as a professional, contributing to their community in some way, shape, or form. Those are the kinds of reinforcements that we know are valuable to us as first gen alumni, but then also to you guys as first gen alumni status seekers, is what I will call you for now. But so yeah, we just know that the more that you engage with professionals and people who have been where you are, and are likely in the place where you're trying to get, then the more that pathway becomes possible. Like the pathway gets brighter and brighter and brighter. So
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that this cleared up some confusion on what first gen is. And I hope that if you didn't know that you were, you now know whether or not you are. And I have another question. What does being first gen mean to you? And so we started off by saying, what is it? Rashi shared her story about her finding out that she was first gen, all of the ways that she helps first gen by way of trio academic advising and being an advisor for the I'm First Club. So, what does being first gen mean to you? Lots of uncertainty, sad but true. But you have help. Come ask us, right? Navigation, new paths, wondering about resources, first to go to college, break generational curses. Yes. Making the dream happen. Yes. First to go to school, being unique, resilient. College is hard as a first gen, especially when you feel like you're all alone. That is so true. The pressures from all area. That's so true. Unique challenges, family journey. That's right. You're not moving on by yourself. It's a whole generation. It's your whole family moving on through you, and then being completely clueless. I appreciate your honest and brief participation there. And I just wanted to end today with just sharing some resources for you. So we've mentioned two a lot, but there are other first gen supports for you. I would say that TRIO is a program that provides that academic support that you have to apply to. And so, definitely, if you're interested in TRIO, you should apply to the TRIO program. And the first gen I'm First Club, you don't have to apply. You can just drop into our meetings and we're happy to help you as you come. Share it with other people. The more the merrier. We're really hoping that we can get a core group of students who know I'm first gen and I want to help other people know that they're first gen. And we'll just support you as much as we can. As mentioned, Rashi and I are both advisors for that club. And then we also have, and I'm just going to pull it up on our Madison College homepage so you can see what I see. So give me one moment here. I'm going to search. Oh, I'm already there under Rise. Okay. So here's another thing that confuses a lot of students. So I'm going to try to clear it up. So Rise is an umbrella organization that houses all of our special population programs. TRIO is an example of a special population program because we service special pops like first and low income and students with disabilities. But there's all sorts of rise. Like there's a Men of Excellence, which is like for student males of color. But right here under first generation student success, there are, if you click on it, it gives you the list of all of the resources that we have at Madison College, and we all work together. together. So the first thing here is Alpha Alpha Alpha, also known as Tri Alpha. It's an honor society specifically for first generation college students. Um, there is a fee, a membership, a lifetime membership fee, but if you need it waived, we can help with that as well. There are some GPA requirements and things like that because it's an honor society. I'm First Student Club. I think we rep that pretty hard. And then we also have created an I'm First scholarship. We understand that there are financial barriers, so we definitely want to make sure that we'll pick students to be recipients, and you have to be first gen. It's helpful that if you're active, so join one of the clubs or join one of these initiatives. So these are the main ones that we have that work together. And so if you're interested, like I said, join our meeting, join Trio. I see a question there. Do you have to apply to Trio each school year? No. Once you apply and you get into Trio, you're in forever. Um, for the most part, we'll never stop helping you. Let me say that. The finances might have a little bit more restrictions because our money come from the same place that financial aid comes from, and they're very strict on how we disseminate our money. But other than that, like the academic support, we're here for you. Um, all right. Any last questions? We got 5 minutes left, or any ways you want to end today as our guest, Rashi? I mean, you've given out a lot, and you're throughout all of your answers. I think that you really helped us understand how we can relate to what first gen is. But any closing remarks?
My biggest thing would be, I guess that piece of advice, parting words, is that if you're first gen, I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you to connect. I mean, connect to, if you're in Trio and you're first gen, connect to your Trio programs. You've got the coaches and the advisors who are here. We all have a wealth of information and resources available to you. If you're not yet in the Trio program, or find that you're not eligible for Trio, there are other ways that you can connect. And I think that, like, Scholars of Mentoring program, I think, is another great one as a way that you could get assigned a mentor and have someone to work with you who's possibly in the field that you're going into, or studying the same educational program that you're studying. So I think that, from my experience and the experiences of those people that I see as my first gen heroes, those were some of the key components to them getting to college, succeeding in college, and then the rest of it is history, right? So whenever you see us sending out invites for things, for you to engage with us and get invited to stuff, I say if it fits within your schedule, give your best effort to attend, because there are always really great nuggets of information for you, really great resources, and more importantly, um, explanations for things, like why you're doing things, and in the time where it's relevant for you to be paying attention to those things. So yeah, that's it.